I've heard that cord cutting is unnecessary and harmful, and wanted to know from you what the alternative was. I'd also heard that, if the baby has it around its neck, you're supposed to do something, but also that maybe that's overblown, or it's not in every situation you handle it. So that's another situation where I don't, I could see that happening, and then having that moment of like, oh, what do I do? Do I need to change my plan to save the baby? But also like, what do I do in the normal situation? Like, does it come off naturally? Do I do something later? So I'm curious to hear your whole perspective on how to handle the cord and placenta.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the nuchal cord, which means the cord wrapped around the baby's neck, is remains one of the sort of central scapegoats for justifications for all kinds of unnecessary drama and intervention. And yeah, in most births that I've attended, the baby's cord is to some degree wrapped around the baby. And actually, contrary to what most people believe, this is very, very protective. It's actually a form of kind of biological brilliance, because when the cord is loose and kind of flopping around, then that can lead to cord prolapse, which is when the cord emerges from the mother's vagina before the baby is born, and that can be very dangerous. And so, when I see a baby that's tangled up in their cord as they're emerging, it's like, oh gosh, what a smart baby. That's great. We don't have to worry about the other thing, right? And so the umbilical cord is filled with a substance called Wharton's jelly, and what that does is that it allows the cord to be twisted and turned, and even sometimes, in some cases, babies can somersault themselves into creating a true knot in the cord. And often that's not an issue either. And so the cord is very integral. It's designed to be that way. And so, yes, I often see babies with cords around their necks, or cords kind of, stylishly kind of draped over shoulders and things like that. And yeah, it's very. I've never actually seen. I've never experienced this to be a problem at all. And often, if the baby's head emerges and the cord is wrapped around the baby's neck, then often the baby's body can still be born without an issue. And once the baby's body is born, then the cord can just simply be unwrapped, and it's not really an issue. So it's certainly not something that I would anticipate to ever be a problem, and I've never witnessed it to be a problem. So yeah, I would just sort of be prepared for that possibility, and to know that it's well within the realm of normal, and that it is even, like I said, a protective thing. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but I would say once your baby's head is born, if you see a cord wrapped around the baby's neck, don't at that point touch the cord or do anything, because if you do, then that can kind of tighten it in other ways. So instead, just allow your baby to be born, because what can often happen is the baby's body can still emerge even if the cord is kind of a little bit tight. And once your baby's fully born, then your wife, probably your partner, can unwrap your baby, or you can do that, and it's just not something to be fearful of. Yeah, it's very normal.
So if we're leaving that attached, how long do we leave it attached? And then what do we do with it afterward? And I have a story about the afterward, because when I was touring with my film and I was traveling around and talking to people, I met someone who, I don't know if she was a doula or a midwife or what, but she would take the placenta. She had a company that took the placenta and turned it into supplement capsules for the woman afterward. And in my 20s, I was like, is that good? Like, do you want to give me some? I'll try it. Like, and she was like, well, there's a chance you might grow breasts if you take it. And I said, nope, never mind. I'm out. I'll pass. So, I mean, we even talked about like, I don't know, like, is there some benefit to that? I have no idea. So I'm curious what you think we should do afterward with it, and then is there a point at which we should do something to disconnect it, or if it should just stay attached for as long as possible? Like, what's the right thing to do there, best thing to do there?
Yeah. Okay, so let's start kind of from the beginning in a way. So your baby will emerge from your partner's body, and in that moment, all of the intensity of the birth will fall away, and you will be immersed in this kind of golden spell of joy and gloriousness. And you'll be meeting your baby for the first time. And at that point, the placenta will still be inside your partner's body. And I like to kind of prepare my clients to really just fully experience that as much as possible. And so we're not even going to think about the placenta. Nothing else exists other than
Right.
meeting your baby and, getting to know your baby. And usually at about, half hour postpartum, 45 minutes, the mother will start to feel kind of crampy and uncomfortable. She might even be a little bit shocky, and that's also within the realm of normal. So, as she's meeting her baby, her support people really want to be really attuned to how she looks and how she's feeling. And if she's really, if she's bright-eyed and focused on her baby, that's really wonderful. If she starts to feel kind of, a little bit pale and faint, then you want to, get her reclined and give her water and give her a bite to eat so that, she's stabilized and feeling well. But when she starts to feel crampy and uncomfortable, that's a really good sign that it's time for the placenta to be born. And so usually what I do is I don't like to encourage mothers to move too much. So we want to kind of keep her in one place and, maybe put a big bowl. If you have a big bowl handy or a big pot, then releasing the placenta into a bowl or a pot just in the bed or in the place where she's birthed is a really good idea. And so sometimes the placenta takes a little bit of kind of nudging to come out. And so the first time she kneels or squats over the bowl to release the placenta, it's going to take some effort. And that's not going to sound very good, but it's not going to hurt at all. So you can give her some encouragement there. And if the placenta doesn't come readily that first time, then put the bowl away, lie back down, nurse the baby. Nursing really helps to release the placenta, so you want to try to get breastfeeding established prior to. You might take a couple of tries. And when the placenta emerges into the bowl, then the birth is complete, but your baby is still attached to the placenta. And so again, when I'm working with a family, we don't even, once the placenta has emerged, then you've kind of moved into another stage. And I don't talk about separating the baby from the placenta for at least a good hour. Because again, I think the longer you can keep baby and placenta attached, not necessarily the longer the better, but what I like to see is baby and placenta attached for at least an hour or two. Right. Now, there are lots of differing opinions on when the optimal time is to separate the baby from the placenta and what the best way of doing that is. So, in some cultures and according to some people's opinions, the placenta is a spirit unto itself and sort of represents a lot of significance in the whole process, and I would agree with that. And so for some people, it's really important to follow what is sometimes known as a lotus birth process. And what that means is not severing the cord at all, and instead allowing the cord to separate from the baby's abdomen entirely spontaneously. And so what that usually involves is packing the placenta with salt and various herbs, and there's lots of sort of different ways of going about that. But because the placenta is a piece of our bodies, you don't want to just leave it as is for several days, because it can take up to a week for the placenta, for the cord to detach naturally from the baby. So if that's a choice that you want to make, then you're going to want to go through a kind of preservation process with the placenta. Now, I had read about this 20 years ago when I had my first baby, and I loved the sort of philosophy behind this. It sounded very spiritually connected for me, and that was my plan. And after about 6 hours, the cord was really cold and limp, and it was constantly kind of touching me, and it was on the baby, and there was this big bowl of placenta there, and I had to, if I needed to go to the bathroom and I wanted to take my baby with me, I had to have someone carry the bowl. And honestly, Brendon, it became kind of unappealing, and I sort of abandoned that, and I ended up cutting my baby's cord after several hours, and I felt at that point totally at peace with that, and that was fine. And so if you end up waiting for several hours, then the blood, there's really no more blood pumping through the cord and the placenta. Nonetheless, I would still in that case recommend clamping the cord on your baby's side, because even after a few hours, in very rare cases, there can be a very slow bleed from the cord, which can compromise your baby's health. And certainly you do want to clamp the cord if you end up severing the placenta from the baby, within a couple of hours. So it's easy to find little plastic sterile cord clamps from any midwifery supply outlet. Probably if you're working with a midwife, she'll have those handy. Or you can use a tie of some kind, new shoelaces or dental floss or something like that, So yeah, that's kind of a bit of an overview of lotus birth. And, there are some families who just love that process. And the advantages, I think, of choosing a lotus birth are that it really does keep mother and baby in bed, because it's very awkward to, carry this placenta bowl around. And so that can be a real benefit. Also, this might sound funny, but I think it's quite true that, doing a lotus birth can be kind of a bit of a natural filter for who ends up wanting to, be around mother and baby. Maybe more conservative people who are not as comfortable with birth placentas, nakedness, that kind of thing, or might be deterred from visiting, and so that can be maybe a benefit for some people. But it does add sort of an additional considerations, right? And it's not necessarily the most practical option. Now, I would say personally, I think that keeping baby and placenta attached for at least a couple of hours is great, and anything after that is just great. Unless you have strong spiritual connection to the idea of the placenta releasing naturally, I don't really see any physiological downsides to separating baby from the placenta after a couple of hours, and so that can be done really anytime a family feels like it. And I have cut my baby's cords a couple of times, but what I've ended up adopting as kind of our family ritual is actually burning the cord. And for me,
I've heard about this.
Yeah, so I love burning the cord, and it's my personal preference, and I prefer that for a couple of reasons. So, for me, it is actually a very emotional process, separating baby from his or her placenta, because I see it as really representative of the full completion of not just the birth experience, but my pregnancy. It's a form of kind of saying goodbye to the old iteration of our family configuration, and of fully welcoming this baby into our family. And so what burning the cord involves is just that. And what I've done is I've had some beautiful boxes made, and often people use these boxes to burn the cord. And so it's an open wooden box with grooves on all four sides of the box. and the cord is draped across the box in one direction, usually lengthwise if it's a rectangular box. So the cord is draped over the box and fit into the 2 grooves on either side. And then I use 2 beeswax candles that meet in the middle and that sort of burn the cord from both sides. And I really love this because it just adds kind of a magical sort of ceremonial feel to it. The fire is so elemental, birth is so elemental. I love sort of bringing fire into my birth room. Fire is it's so potent, it's so raw, it's so primal. Human beings have such a profound relationship with fire. So, having these 2 candles, burning while I'm snuggling our newborn baby is just, it has a sort of a coziness and a sense of sort of fun and excitement and sweetness to it. And, I have a big family, so my older kids are always involved in my births. And so they're on the bed and gathered around, and like the kids are holding the candles, and, there's like a sense of a little bit of risk to it too. Like, don't burn the house down, guys. And it does take a little bit of time. So it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to burn through the cord. And during that time, we kind of, we glory over this baby. We talk about the birth. There's just a real sense of sort of family togetherness, and there's so much excitement too. Like when the cord gets close to breaking apart, it's like, oh, it's gonna happen, and then oh, it happened, and our baby's here, and our baby's been released. Our baby's released from the placenta, and it's done. There's a sense of completion. And on a practical level, what burning the cord also does is it cauterizes the cord on both sides. So it's completely sterile, it's sealed, there's no need to use clamps, and there's actually a sense of sort of ease to it. So in a way, it's more elaborate, but also in another way, there's a simplicity to it that I quite like. So yeah, there's lots of different ways of treating the cord, and all are fine. And I don't think that apart from the spiritual significance to waiting several days without severing the cord at all, I think once a couple of hours or a few hours have passed, then whatever you decide to do with the cord is.
Thank you for listening to the Brendon Marotta Show. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else who would also like it, and then go on whatever platform you listen to the show on and leave a positive review. If you want to support the show directly, go to brendonmarotta.com/show and subscribe there. Paid subscribers get special unreleased bonus material and live events that are only available to them. Once again, that is brendonmarotta.com/show. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all later.